type of guy that likes to roam around. I'm never in one place. I roam from down to town. And when I find myself falling for some girl, I hop right in that car. I drive around the world 'cause I'm a wanderer. Yeah, I'm a wanderer. I roam around, 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 around. Let's go, let's go.
What I wanted to do with this album is champion the cause of guitar players. This is like great rock guitar players of the 50s and guys who played behind them, like with Gene Vincent, Cliff Gallup, behind Ricky Nelson, James Burton, behind Presley, Scotty Moore.
Everybody, everybody. Yeah, rock, rock and roll. Rock and roll, rock and roll. Ever since I've been 17 years old.
You had Link Ray, you had Dwayne Eddy, you had Chet Atkins,
Down in my veins.
you had Les Paul, Bob Vogel from the Ventures, and Don Wilson from the Ventures cite a lot of those guys as their
Many
inspiration.
long years I know. Some cream puff spending my money, Jack, but that'll be no more. I'm a steady rolling man.
A lot of people don't even know some of the guys who played on those records. Europeans are a little different. They know. They know. They're a little more, they like the history of the songs, you know, the intent of the songs. But in the States we go, hey, that's a nice song. They don't care who played on it, they don't, you know. But guys like, you know, us, we were like, well, being I'm part of the musical community in New York, and you have a lot of traffic through Manhattan and New York, I met a lot of the guys. So I was fortunate to meet a lot of the guys. And James Burton was just inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and it's good to see him again.
Yeah, you want to rock and roll, little girl. I won't do you wrong.
Great inspiration, these guys, you know, to the music keeps me young. I love string instruments, you know, especially guitar, you know. One thing we try to capture with this album is we didn't try to imitate the songs, but we tried to capture the original intent, the passion of it, the approach to it. We kept a lot of it. You will recognize the songs for sure. But like I said, we didn't imitate them. But we rocked. We had a ball. We'll start with Gene Vincent. 1956, he did Bebop-A-Lula, you know.
Bebop-A-Lula, she's my baby. Bebop-A-Lula, don't mean baby. Bebop-A-Lula, she's my baby. Bebop-A-Lula, don't mean baby. Bebop-A-Lula, she is my baby, love, my baby doll, my baby doll.
And Cliff Gallup, who was one of the greatest guitar players ever. I don't think a lot of people know who he was. You're a Cliff Gallup fan, tell him.
Well, you know, Cliff was, for those days, 1956, there was just absolutely nobody playing like that. When I first heard the guy play, I was, you know, you got to be kidding me. Where's this guy coming from? And for that time, you know, Cliff Gallup was basically used a Gretsch guitar back in those days, and out of a Standell amplifier with 215s, and with the tape echo that was on the recording was something that was stumbled upon by accident. When they synced up the tape machines to do overdubs, they got this out of phase, you know, delay, which basically here I'm using a simulated pedal instead of the tape echo, which we actually used on our recording. And it gives you basically, you know, your rockabilly
the woman that's got that beat. She's the woman with the flying feet. She's the girl who walks around my store. She's the woman, she's my baby. I wore that record out. Cliff Gallup never wanted to go on tour. He didn't want to travel. So he stayed in Norfolk, Virginia. He was a maintenance man for 30 years. Gene Vincent, he did 2 albums with Gene Vincent, and Gene tried to record after that. Without Cliff Gallup, nothing.
Yeah, he did about 35 recordings, I believe, and he was a maintenance guy in a school till his death in 1988. And I believe put out 1 solo record, I think, around 1983, which Guitar Player did an article, and then Jeff Beck, who was probably his biggest fan.
I thought I was the only guy who wanted to stay home. One of the reasons for doing this album is to kind of champion the cause of these guys that are, like I said, Rolling Stone magazine started in '67, so they didn't document a lot of this wonderful, the artists. There was a lot of artists in the 50s, I believe. And sometimes people look at that era like a kind of, you know, one-hit wonders, you know, cute little record, you know, they have it's like a caricature of what was going on, not the real deal, you know. I'm gonna really fuss, I'm gonna really hard. I'm working on someone just to try to dog. One thing I wanted to say is that a lot of these guys, when I say rock and roll, they rocked and they rolled. Today it's like the bands today sound like Oscar the Grouch. But there ain't no cure for the summertime blues. You know, like on Sesame Street, boom, boom, boom. It just makes, you know, it's all rock, no roll. You know, there's no tone. So I don't think they make records like this anymore, you know. So I think people are going to enjoy this album. I worked with Eddie Cochran at the Palace Theater on 46th Street on Broadway. And that's the guitar he had.
Pretty similar. Pretty similar. He used this actually, had a different pickup in the neck position, which was a P90. And then had actually the Dynasonic or the D-Arm pickup in the bridge position. But this was basically the same guitar that he used. And
yeah, and he ran his amp into the men's room in Los Angeles at the studio to get that. They didn't have effects back then.
Yeah, whatever sound you could get, you'd stick an amp in a hallway, you know, and they do echo chambers. They'd take a room, find a nice sound, stick a speaker in there, put a mic on it, and to get that particular, you know, whatever it took. And actually, on this record, we had amps in bathrooms, hallways, you know, wherever we could to trying to simulate some sort of nice, authentic room.
The man's a maniac. He's like, hang the amp here. 3 feet up.
You know, actually, Gene Vincent and those guys, and actually on one of his albums, he has a song called, I believe, 3 Stars, which talks about the death of Buddy Holly and Richie Valens and the Big Bopper, and I think there's a line in there where he says, "Well, they say I was young, you know, but you were only 17." Talking about Richie. And that's the people he was listening to. That was his inspiration. And actually, he died in a car accident. Gene Vincent was in the car with him.
That year. The same year he recorded that song. Yeah, they were close. I think Gene and Eddie Cochran traveled together a lot. I think
I believe they were in England when this happened, because Gene Vincent basically left the States, I guess, in the late 50s or so, early 60s.
Yeah, he moved to England in 60. Yeah. And then he had Eddie Cochran come over. He says, you got to come over here and tour with me. Eddie went over, and
Gene remained there as like a cult hero, and all through the 60s, the British people just embraced this guy. And then came back and got a record deal, I guess, in about 1969, and performed with Lennon in Toronto. And then when he passed away in '71, he passed away from ulcers. That I think he fell and ruptured an ulcer in his stomach and died. He was living with his parents.
Elvis Presley, I chose Jailhouse Rock because the thing just, I mean, come on. Jailhouse Rock, to me, it just, I had to do it. One of my favorite rock songs.
You want to party in the county jail. The prison band down, they began to wail. The bell jumping and the band began to swing. You should have knocked that jailbird singing, let it rock.
He had Scotty Moore playing guitar for him, you know, a bar-drinking country boy who really wailed. And I got Crow playing on my on Jailhouse Rock here. This guy is the lost Picasso. Like if people don't know Scotty Moore and James Burton and Cliff Gallup, they got to meet this guy. This guy flies more under the radar than they do.
That's enough. I'm going home.
You're talking about Carl Perkins? You're talking about the Boogie Woogie King. I mean, Mr. Rockabilly himself. Carl Perkins was a great guy, gentleman. I love being around him. I wore his record out, Blue Suede Shoes. It just came out a little before I entered the scene, you know, with the Wanderer and Runaround Sue, and come upon the scene with all that stuff. And he was a great guitar player, and Blue Suede Shoes is probably one of my favorite records. Johnny Cash, I Walk the Line. Now that's a song that's a killer. I Walk the Line by Johnny Cash. Here is this unbelievable punk rocker, a rapper almost. I mean, Ricky Nelson and Johnny Cash, when I did these songs, I realized that they weren't singers. They talked notes. And Johnny Cash, I Walk the Line is an incredible song, and I've always had great respect for him. I met Johnny Cash through Waylon Jennings, who was a great friend. And I sound like Forrest Gump or something, you know, with all the, like, and then I met, but I've been around a long time. But it's funny, Johnny Cash with that song, you know, I keep a close watch on this heart of mine. I keep my eyes wide open all the time. I keep the ends out for the tie that binds. I walk the line because, because you're mine, I walk the line. And imagine a guy like him leaning into his relationship with his wife when most rockers lean out. They get bored of the excitement. There's no excitement, or they want to get more excited. This guy leaned in. So this song taught me a great lesson, and being around Cash taught me a great lesson. When things were rough, you lean into your marriage. Don't lean out, because that's where the gold is. And I found that to be true. That's why I love this song. And Norman Blake played guitar for Johnny Cash. I mean, Les Paul played a lot of notes. Less is more with Norman Blake, because all he did was play that line for Johnny Cash. And just great style. And Johnny Cash loved Born to Cry. I did this song called Born to Cry, and he liked it. And I still think he was the first, he was a punk rocker at heart. Chuck Berry. I chose to do Sweet Little Rock and Roller. Great song, you know.
Oh, well, the dog makes me sweet as she can be.
You know.
Sweet little rock and roll. Now they getting older. Daddy can hardly hold her.
Chuck Berry, his writing and his guitar playing, come on. He just really contributed a lot, you know, and have great respect for him. Give me a break. Talk about poets. This guy, I consider him a genius. And I've met a few in my life. And my definition of being a genius would be the distance between what he was doing and what everybody else was doing. And Chuck Berry, in those 2 years, the songs, you know, what is that? I saw her from the corner when she turned and doubled back. She started walking towards her coffee-colored Cadillac. I was pushing through the crowd trying to get to where she's at. Campaign shouting like a southern diplomat. Nadine, honey, is that you? It seemed like every time I catch up with you, you got something else to do. What? Now, Roy Orbison is another guy, known Roy. God, met Roy Orbison, you know, a long time. We've been friends a long time. And know his wife, Barbara. And went with Roy Orbison to Australia in 1960. And back then, man, they had prop engines. And no one was on the plane. It was like we had seats, you know. We had the whole plane to ourselves. And we shared with each other how to write songs. You know, I remember him telling me, he said, Dion, listen, if you want to write a song that talks about being lucky, you take one verse, you write it about a horseshoe. A lucky horseshoe, and the next verse a rabbit's foot, and the next verse a lucky coin, and then you develop the song that way. And I would tell him how to. I said, well, I have a different approach to songs. And in fact, I went back and I wrote this song because there was a girl in treatment, and this is kind of the stuff I used to share with him. I say, you know, I throw everything in there when I have this song about wanting, you know, wanting to reach somebody. I've got to get to you. I've got to get to you. Check this song out. I'd take a helicopter or a Concorde jet, a creaky elevator or a red Corvette. I'd water ski an ocean, ride a tugboat too. There isn't a single thing that I wouldn't do. I've got to get to you. I've got to get to you. You know, I'd drive an ice cream truck or a wagon train. I'd climb the highest flagpole in the pouring rain. I'd take a city subway, a 10-speed bike. Shoot me out of a circus cannon if you'd like. I gotta get to you. I'd jockey a camel on the burning sand, scale every mountain peak across the land. I'd steer a locomotive or I'd roller skate because my motor's running and it's getting late. You know, I gotta get to you. I gotta get to you. Love is kind. It suffers long. It's never proud or jealous. Love will never do you wrong. Good God, love will never fail us. You know, I'd ride a steamboat or a motorcycle. I'd roll across the earth upon a unicycle. I'd grab a taxi. I'd pay an enormous fare. Hop in a hot air balloon. Because I really care, girl. I got to get to you. Who took the sun and gave you rain? Who filled your heart with sorrow? Who came and stole your tender years? Who filled your eyes with tears of no tomorrow? You know, I'd drive a tractor or a limousine. I'd try a pogo stick, baby, or a submarine. I'd push a scooter. I'd use an ATC, a rickshaw, or a dog sled. It's all the same to me. I gotta get to you.
That's a new song?
No, it was a song I wrote back then, but you know, I some years ago, and I recited it to Roy. I said, check this out, you know. We were just, you know, fleshing out different ways to approach writing songs, and he taught me a lot. You know, it's funny. To say he was unique, like a unique singer, is like an understatement, because he was a very unique writer and singer. And when you were close to him, and he'd hit those notes, he was very quiet. It's unbelievable. You'd think his voice was enormous. It was very, very quiet. Small, like very relaxed. And it was amazing. He taught me how not to get hoarse. I'll tell you a wild story. My father loved Roy Orbison, and he loved Jackie Wilson. And he came over to the Brooklyn Fox one day with a record of Benjamino Gigli, who was an Italian opera singer, who had a very small voice, but a lot of heart. And when I was growing up, you know, and my father would say, Caruso is nothing like Gigli. Gigli has heart. Caruso is just loud. So he went over and he showed them, he played them Gigli records. which, you know, operatic thing, Pagliacci, and beautiful songs. And I think Jackie Wilson did the night after he heard Gigli. Because my father said, you guys remind me of him. And I think they took it to heart because Gigli had great heart, you know. At the Grammys in 1987, we were together in the dressing room. I had closed the Grammys that year with Runaround Sue. And we were up in the dressing room, and he sang Dream Baby. And he put a bridge in the song that I never heard before. And I tried to recreate it on this album, you know, what I remember of it, because I didn't have a tape recorder running. But I love that song, Dream Baby. How long must I dream? And so I chose that song, and we had a great time doing it. To me, it's one of his best songs. Ricky Nelson, unbelievable, handsome guy. When the first time I met Ricky Nelson, I think I combed my hair about 20 times that day. I don't think I came out of the hotel room. The guy was, if I was a girl, I'd go out with him. But he was a great-looking guy. And James Burton, one of the best guitar players. I mean, unbelievable. I think he was from Shreveport, Louisiana, you know, and his beginnings was like, you know, jazz, country, rock and roll. He had that telly, you know, great neck speed. He was like, you know, he was like a punk rocker. And I know Ricky Nelson and I met him at a party, and we both had a love for Fats Domino and Carl Perkins. He loved Carl Perkins, who was like the king of rockabilly. And God, I must have been, I feature myself as the king of Bronxabilly, you know. I chose Shake, Rattle, and Roll because we both were, I think, great Big Joe Turner fans. Now, Bill Haley was much older than me. He was like 15 years older, so he was like a father, you know. And he was going out while I was coming in. And I never really knew him, didn't meet him, didn't hang with him or anything. And but we had a love for Big Joe Turner, and American roots music, I think, was, like I said, both our foundation. You know, made that rock around the clock, you know. And his guitar player was great. I think his name was Danny Sidran or something like that. The Everly Brothers. Again, we go back a long time. We started out together, and, you know, always loved the guitar sound, you know, and Phil and I are close. He sang on a couple of songs I did, and we did Soundstage together, and we sat on a piano stool, and I did a song called, I think it was Queen of 59, about my wife, and he sang harmony with me, and we did many shows together, many tours, and they got great guitar players playing for them, you know. And Don was very unique on those early records. The bridge, every time he took off and did a solo, it was like heaven to me. You know, he had that tremolo, that vibrato in his voice, very fast, and it was very unique. Those bridges in all the songs, just unbelievable. Crying in the Rain, but I chose Bye Bye Love because I know the harmony to it, and love the guitars in it. So it came out great. I met Bo Diddley at the Apollo Theater in 1958. We were friends for like over 50 years we were friends. He cooked me chicken at the hotels, and you know, when the first time I met him was at the Apollo Theater, and he was a wild man. You know, he built his own guitars back then. He had, and they got more sophisticated as time went on. You know, octave detuners down to octaves and tremolo and all kinds of stuff built right into the guitar. Great guy. Looked intimidating. First time I met him, I was in the dressing room and I was like, I was like playing some kind of blues, and he looked over and, you know, said, "Where'd you learn how to play like that?" And I thought he was going to kill me. I didn't know him, you know. He was like an intimidating looking guy. And Howlin' Wolf was with him. And he was like 6'6" with shoes this big, you know. And they were like, you know, "Where'd you learn how to do that?" You know, and I thought, I'm going to get killed, you know. And I almost started like stammering. And I said, "I've been listening to records." And Bo said, "Me too." And Howlin' Wolf went, "Yeah, me too." And I went, "Oh, I'm going to live."
Oh, Diddley, you know, he's just so much of the African rhythms. He was just total soul and guts and heart. And his sound basically saturated his tone with tremolo and would get this. Primitive, but nothing like it. Nothing like it before him, and nothing like him since. And he's the only guy to do that. And you know,
when I worked with Bo Diddley, he didn't even have a bass player with him. He had his cousin James playing maracas, and Clifton James on drums, just playing tom-toms, big toms. Man, he'd get off stage, and they would have to rebuild the stage when he got off. I'm telling you. You know, one time, I was working with him at the Paramount Theater, and during the finale, he was doing a step that looked like he was bicycling backwards, and he hit his foot. He stepped on a wire, one of the wires backstage, and he twisted his ankle, and they had to take him to the hospital. And during the we used to do like 5 shows a day. I ran over to the hospital to see him. And I walked over to the receptionist. I said, "I'd like to see Bo Diddley." And she said, "Bo Diddley? Bo Diddley? Bo Diddley? Did he have a green suit on with a pink tie and a yellow shirt and a white hat with orange shoes?" I said, "Yeah, that's him." She said, "Oh, Ellis McDaniels. He's in room 201, you know." So who sits down and starts writing a song and says, "I walk 47 miles of barbed wire. I use a cobra snake for a necktie. I got a brand new house on the roadside made of rattlesnake hide. I got a brand new chimney made on top, made out of a human skull. Come on, take a little walk with me, Arlen, and tell me, who do you love?" What? I was like, I never heard anything like that in my life. I followed them around. I walk 47 miles of barbed wire. I use a cobra snake for a necktie. I got a brand new house on the roadside, made of rattlesnake hide. Got a brand new chimney made on top, made out of a human skull. Come on, take a little walk on and tell me, who do you love? Who do you love? Who do you love? You know, and he wrote that song, "You Can't Judge a Book by Looking at the Cover." And ain't that the truth, man? He, like I said, we worked a lot together, and he was radical, man. Sonic guitar playing, you know, the tribal beat. Certainly an innovator with the electronics and everything. And he had that whole kind of back road genius poetry going, you know, that it comes from that era of Lord, I wonder what's got the matter. All the time, Billy Jane seemed like in the midnight hour. Everything rearranged, but I hold up my head. Lord, I'm trying to help her understand. Everybody now to tell me somebody done hoodoo the hoodoo man. But you barely early this morning, your elevator run slow. But you better little woman take me up to your side, trying to hold up my head. Lord, I'm trying to help her understand. Everybody now to tell me somebody done hoodoo the hoodoo man. I could dodge your paw, I could dodge your ma, but I'm going to New York City, baby, to dodge the Jersey law. I hold up my head. I mean, when you get, you know, these guys are like, you know, poets. Del Shannon, I chose Runaway because, did we rock back here with Runaway. Rick Creevy brought his Farfisa in, and we nailed it. We nailed it. Del would be proud of me. We were great friends. We shared a love for country music. We both loved, you know, Merle Haggard, Hank Williams, George Jones. He loved From the Window Up Above. I've been living he'd come over to the house and we'd sing all night. We'd sing country songs all night. He was a very underestimated artist, Del Shannon. He was like, you know, reminds me tremendously of Del Shannon is John Fogerty. It's like they were brothers. It's from different eras. But Del Shannon was a great artist, great writer, and a great friend. I miss him, and I hope you enjoy Runaway. With Richie Valens, I chose Come On, Let's Go, because that thing rocked me every night for 2 weeks back then. You know, I just loved that song. I was going to do, Ooh, My Head. But I decided to do this, you know. Well, come on, let's go, let's go, let's go, little darling. Come now, tell me that you love me. Come on, let's go it again, again. Well, now, sing all the way down there. It's like, it has no rhyme or reason. It's like a bar and a half. But the drummer loved it. We had a band back here. We rocked. You're going to love that song when you hear it. Okay, in 1959, January of 1959, I met Richie Valens, Buddy Holly, and the Big Bopper. We embarked on a tour, a co-headlining tour. We went out to the Midwest and rented a little yellow, like, church school bus. They didn't have, you know, luxury liners and, you know, these custom designed buses that Willie Nelson travels in these days. So we got on the bus, all of us, band, the whole bit, crickets, you know, and Buddy Holly, and off we went. Spent 2 weeks together on that bus, suffering. It would break down. The cold weather. We were going through like the Midwest from Chicago and Novas. You know, I forget some of the towns, but you know, it was Green Bay. Very cold, 30 below zero. Bus would break down. Buddy Holly got fed up one night in Clear Lake, Iowa, and he was 22 years old, Buddy Holly, and he was a very decisive, kind of an old soul for a young guy. I was 19. And the reason why I want to talk about this is I put Come On, Let's Go by Richie Valens on this album, and Oh Boy by Buddy Holly. Of course, night after night for 2 weeks I heard these guys singing, and we were singing in the bus for 2 weeks. in the back of the bus. We all had different brands of rock and roll. I was from the Bronx, so I had this New York City kind of approach. Richie Valens was Chicano from the barrio, from the San Fernando Valley out in L.A. And I identified a lot with his passion, his, you know, his Latino passion, you know, that rhythm, and he had a way of doing stuff. And Buddy Holly was from Lubbock, Texas. So he had another way of doing it. And we all had the new Fender guitars, Stratocasters. And we were in a contest to see who would make it ring the longest, you know, and Buddy Holly, all of my love, all of my kissing. You don't know what you've been, and it's an old boy. And we were in this contest. I forget who won, but we were just, you know, absorbing each other's approach and kind of brand of rock and roll. And Richie Valens had great love for the music. And I identified with him because we both had T-Birds. I had a silver gray, black leather bucket seats with wire chrome wheels, and he had his. You know, and we would share. Oh, did you get this? Did you? You know, we were like in our glory here, like two kids on a field trip. You know, and it was great fun. Like I said, Buddy Holly was very deliberate kind of guy. He was an old soul. He was like a businessman. He chartered this plane, and he was recruiting everybody. You know, gathered the headliners, myself, the Big Bopper, and Richie. And he said, "Listen, I got a plane, but it's a four-seater. The pilot, only 3 of us could go, so we'll flip a coin." I said, "You know, you don't even have to flip the coin. You know, it was like $36 a piece. If you shared the total price of the flight." And it was like a 45-minute flight, you know, and that wasn't $36. My parents, every day of my life, were arguing about the rent in Bronx, New York City. $36. I am not going to squander. My head hadn't, you know, stretched to the point where I could spend $36 on a flight. I said, "No, I'll stay with the bus." So I think they flipped. Waylon Jennings was playing bass. He, you know, he says, "Well, I'll flip." And I think I don't know if they flipped, but Richie was very sick. He had a cold. I don't think he ever experienced weather like that. And Richie Valens, I said, "Yeah, you can have my seat," you know. And that plane took off that night in Clear Lake, Iowa, February 3rd of this coming year. 2008, 2009, sorry. And that's 50 years ago. And it never made it to Moorhead, Minnesota. We were going to play in Fargo, North Dakota, which was right across the border. And the next morning, when the bus pulled into Fargo, and you know, that plane crashed that night, killing all aboard, Richie Valens, the Big Bopper, Buddy Holly, and the pilot. I walked into that hotel. I got off the bus after, you know, a night of driving through that terrible weather. I walked into the hotel that morning, and in the lobby, some people were watching this little small TV, and it, you know, said, "The plane went down, killing Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, the Big Bopper, all aboard." And I was 19 years old. I was totally, like, I went into a shock. I was baffled. I was on the bus with these guys for like 2 weeks. And I didn't believe it. I walked back out to the bus, and I was the only one on the bus, and Richie's, you know, blue outfit was hanging from the luggage rack, and Buddy Holly's guitar was on the seat, and I was alone on the bus, and I was baffled. I think I was shocked for like 2 weeks. For 2 weeks, I don't think I don't remember. I went into this kind of, anyway, I do miss them. And I don't know how well I processed it. I think I think it was years later I finally put it to rest because I felt guilty for a long time for giving my seat to Richie, you know. But that was great fun up until that moment. It was just those guys were like, it was one of the best things that ever happened in my life. And then the carpet was like ripped out from under me. But it brought up some deep questions in my life. What's life about? Why are you here? Where are you going? Who are you? What is this, you know, about? And which questions I had to answer for myself. And I did. And it's 50 years later, and I thank God that I'm here. I have 3 daughters and, you know, enjoying life. And I had a chance to do this album and champion the cause of these guys and just keep their name out there because they were great first-generation rock and rollers.
I think he used it on